Okay, so I think we're ready to go. It seems like everybody is logged in that's going to join us for today. So welcome to today's webinar, where we're going to talk a little bit about CNC automating using Creo. So I just prepared a few slides for us before we jump into Creo and the post-processor stuff. So objective for this webinar, in this webinar, we'll cover the basics on how PTC empowers customers to develop and maintain post-processors for Creo NC using the GPost generator that's coming with your manufacturing software. So just a quick agenda. So I'll do a quick introduction. I just want to quickly introduce you guys to the digital thread that we've been running the last couple of months. Then our topic overviews, we're going to talk about the option file generator, and then the factory interface language, full, or FIL if you want to. And then we're going to jump into a live demonstration. After that, we're going to do a quick question and answer session. Regarding the question and answer sessions, as you think of those questions, please feel free to use the GoToWebinar questions panel. Get those questions in as you think about them. Don't wait till after the webinar. Maybe you forget about it, or you have different questions or things like that. If I answer your question during the webinar, I'll have a quick repeat of that, so the other guys can pick up on that as well. Okay, so yeah, get those questions in as you think about them. Okay, so just a quick introduction. So my name is Pierre Venter. I'm a boundary system technical specialist, or a PDSVISION technical specialist. I've been working with PTC products since about 2008. So each engineer at Boundary Systems or PDSVISION specialize in certain areas of the PTC product range. So I specialize in the Creo manufacturing side of things, smart assembly for Creo, and then anything top-down design related. So we are PDSVISION, formerly known as Boundary Systems. So we are technology leaders and the first PTC global resellers and service provider. So some of our capabilities, so we help customers on a consulting basis, implementation services, professional training, cloud services, and then we also have a pretty good help desk to help all our customers. So as you can see on the right-hand side, because we are part of the PDSVISION group, we have also offices all over the world. So I think most of you guys are familiar with Boundary Systems in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm based in South Africa, so right at the bottom there. And then we also have a few offices in Europe and around the world. Okay, so just a quick timeline of how we got to be PDSVISION. So Boundary Systems was founded in Cleveland in 2006. The PDSVISION group was founded in Sweden 2008. And then 2009, Boundary Systems becomes a preferred windshield partner for PTC products. And in 2014, Boundary Systems expand its global operations into South Africa. So that's where I got introduced into or started to learn about Boundary Systems. And then PDSVISION group bought Boundary Systems in 2018. And then the latest 2020, the PDSVISION group acquires NATE in Germany. Yeah, so just a quick timeline on how we got to where we are today. So we also have partners in other solutions. So just to name a few, the Tacton guys I work a lot with, the C-Maxim guys, X-Formation, Etrage, Keyshot, and just to name a few of the other solutions that we offer. But I think our main focus is on the PTC stuff. So just a quick introduction about digital thread concept. So we've been running a monthly webinar series where we discuss this digital thread, and this is just how information flows in a company, the digital information. So make sure to go and follow that, and I think we're going to do the 4th series now this month. So just a good overview of how information flows and what digital information is important to what areas in your business. So just another slide on just giving you a chart on how that information flows and how it can help you to get your products out there, get time to market a little bit quicker, and as we're going to talk today, get them on the machines quicker and have the right things on the machine, making those shavings. Okay, so let's jump into why we are here today. So we're going to cover how we're going to or how you can create those post processors for your CNC tools. So the tool that you'll be using that's coming with your manufacturing software is called the option file generator. So a lot of the things is going to happen here. The foundation of your post processor is built in this option file generator. So I'm going to go through that during our demonstration and discuss the various types of machines and the bits and pieces that you can use in that. Going hand in hand with that is the factory interface language. So this is a language that you can use to do extra bits and pieces to your post processor. So the option file generator will get the foundations there. It will put out code in a certain way, but as soon as you want particular things, then you need to go into FIL language, and that's just a macro language that you can use. And I just put up a quick screenshot on an example of that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to show you where you can get some help documentation, and we'll discuss that in the demonstration as well. Most important, as soon as you start working with these stuff, is the help things. So if you watched any of our previous webinars, you'll notice that there was PDF files that I think it was both me and Sean, we referred to that. Just notice in the latest installations of Creo 7, 8, and 9, those PDF files are not there anymore. So I sort of removed them from this slide. If you need those PDFs, you need to install an older version of Creo, or you can just send me an email. I'll put up my details at the end, and then I'll send you those PDF files. But for now, strictly PTC talking, you'll have to go and use the GPost central page, and there's also a lot of good information on the knowledge base. Yeah, so this is the slide. So I just wanted to put that up there. That there's some default post processors. So if you go to the GPost central page, there's links that you can follow to download default post processors. So there's a few molds, a few turns, wire EDMs, laser contouring, and sheet metal punch machines. So you can find those there. There's also a default post processor that's being installed with Creo as soon as you install the manufacturing things. So I think this common files x86e, that's where most of them will be. So just go make sure where your installation folder is, and then you can go and view those post processors. So I know there's a few HARs, a few Fanuc machines. I think there's one Heidenheim in there as well, but we can go and check that during our demo as well. So just note that there are some default posts. Keep in mind these post processors are not trial and tested for those specific machines, so you still need to go and test them. Use them as a starting block. Maybe you'll need to go and tweak a few things. A lot of them have old full language in them, so those are things that you need to be wary of. Don't go and download these and generate code and go run your machines. Your machines are expensive. If there's crashes and things like that, it's going to cost you money, and we don't want to be blamed for that. So take note. It's starting points, it's templates for you to use, but they are pretty good in that regard as starting points. Right. So I'm going to talk about P-print today, and just something that I wanted to mention that's new in Creo 9. So there's user-defined parameters and things that you can add now in Creo 9. So if you are going to develop post-processors and you're going to use Creo 9, or the manufacturing stuff in Creo 9, just make note, these are things that can make your life a little bit easier. You can add CL commands and things like that in the P-print, and then obviously use that in your FIL. So I just wanted to make you guys notice that as well. Okay, so I'll talk about I'll give you guys the contact information after we've done the demonstration. So I'm going to jump into the help documentation first. Okay, so if you log on to the knowledge base and you search for GPost, you'll notice the GPost central page. So if you click on that, it's going to open up a tab, and there's a whole bunch of things that you will find in there that's going to help you guys with this GPost journey. So there's presentations that you can download. It's just overviews. Then there's some beginner training, and then there's some advanced training. And the nice thing about all of these, there's some exercise files as well. It's not like your normal PTC training courses. It's not going to give you click-by-click instructions. So you still have to figure out what you need to do with the GPost and with the FIL stuff. So just be wary of that. It's not in-depth training. What I wanted to show is the default mold processors that you can download as well. So I'm quickly going to go into that. So PTC updated this page a while ago, and you can see there's a whole bunch of default things that you can download. There's some 5-axis stuff in here, 4-axis that you can download. So maybe use these as a starting point if you want to get into this. I think it's pretty good. When we develop our post processors, we normally do it from scratch. That's just because we have templates, we have a whole bunch of things, and we sort of just reuse that, and then we know where we're going with it. With these, it's a little bit difficult to sometimes figure out what was done previously. It's the same as any programming thing that you're gonna try. If somebody else started with it, you don't know all the variables. You need to go and double check that. So just be wary when you use these. And like I said, they're not machine ready. Don't go and generate code, put them on your CNC machine. You'll most probably end up gouging parts or damaging your machine. I'm just going to go back one. One of the things that I've downloaded was the GPost Quick Reference Guide. So it's a PDF file that you can download and save. I refer back to this quite often. It's just giving you some good information on what information is where in your CL data. So we're going to review one of the CL files a little bit later on, and then you can use this as a quick reference guide. All right. Okay, so let's jump into Creo. So there's actually two methods that you can start up the GPost or the the GPO stuff. So the one is going into Creo, going to the Applications tab, and then click on this NC Post Processor. So that's going to open up the option file generator, the GPO stuff, and from here you're going to start your development of the post processor. Okay. So this method, you open up from Creo. It sort of locks Creo in. You can see if I take the mouse and I hover that over the normal Creo graphics window, it sort of gives me that wheel of windows where it tells me that it's thinking about something. So you can't really work in Creo while you do this. The other method is to start it up with an icon. So once you do that, you can run the option file generator and Creo at the same time. So that's just a nice, easy way to make a change, quickly test that in Creo, create a new CL file, and go back and forth between the option file generator and the and your CL data. Okay, so let's quickly look at starting a new post processor. So you're going to click on the new icon, and then you'll be able to choose what type of post machine you'll use. Is it going to be a lathe? Is it going to be a mill, YADM, laser, and punch? So we're going to go with the mill one for today. And then you need to specify a machine number. Okay, so you'll notice that I have 11 already in this directory that I've set, and a 24. So it will choose the lowest one by default, but you can go and you can change that, and you can make it 99 if you want to, or whatever the case might be. So I'm going to stick with 1 today, and then I'm going to say next, and then we have a few options. So how do we want to start off with this post processor? Do we want to use a default one? Do we want to use a default option file from the system, or do we want to use an existing option file? So that might be a good option if you are creating a new one and you've chosen to use one of the PTC default libraries post processors in there. If the output was good enough and you think you're going to save some time with those default post processors as a foundation, then that might be a good option. Yeah. So for today, we're just going to start off with the defaults. We're going to say next, and you're going to give your option file a name, and we can call it webinar TV. Okay, and it's going to go and it's going to create that post processor. So the first window that pops up is a very important window. It's where you're going to set your machine type and how it's going to be configured. So under this machine type, we have a few options. And I think the normal one or the important ones are the correct setup for your 5-axis. 4-axis, you either have a rotary table or rotary head. The 5-axis can be a little bit more complicated, so you need to choose that right from the start. You start fiddling around with axis positions and things like that, and you don't have to put the correct setup. Then you'll need to go and fix this first, and then obviously fix the axis and fix after that. Okay, so let's start with just a normal 3-axis machine for now. I just want to show you, as you select this, these tabs are going to grow, and that's something that's going to work exactly the same way through the option file generator. If you're going to add certain tick boxes, that's going to add additional tabs at the top. Okay, so make sure you pick the right stuff, and that's going to open up a new world for you. So for instance, if we go to 5-axis rotary table, that's going to be our machine setup, and you notice immediately the extra tabs I have here at the top. So my rotary table is going to rotate around what axis? You need to specify that. My secondary table is going to spin around what axis? So you need to set that And then there's a whole bunch of things that you can set with that. Okay, so if we go to a 4-axis machine, that's going to be that setup, and you can see you only have the 1 axis that you can set for how that machine is going to rotate about. Okay. So all of this are pretty similar. It's only the more axis, the more options you have, but the foundation of it is the same. Okay, so let's stick to a 3-axis machine for now. The sample data that I have is only going to do 3-axis. Okay, so the transform and output. So not something that's being used a lot in recent years. That's when you want to translate x-axis and things like that. If you want to scale it, things like that. Most of this stuff is being CAD driven nowadays, or it's done on the controller itself. So the post-processor stuff don't really focus on that so much anymore. But the guys at Creo NC, they do a pretty good job of staying in the same user interface. It's very similar. They don't take things out, even if it's redundant. They will keep it there. You never know when you're going to use that. So things that's been there from the first version is still available in the latest version. Okay. So planar machining, if you have planar machining, you need those G7, 18s and 19s. That is where you will set that up. So as soon as you enable that, all the options, all the user blocks and things like that becomes available. So that's a good example of a tick box that you tick and then options becomes available. Okay. If you're running a right angle edge, that's also where you will start setting that up. Okay, obviously you need 4 or 5 axes for that. So I'm just gonna undo that. So it takes us back to where we need to go and change that. Other file formats, the MCD, this is also a very important page, one that you'll use most of the time. Excuse me. So I think if we look at the machine type, this tab is critical. That's really important. That's where you're going to do most of your work. If you're going to go to file formats, this MCD list file, that's the next one that's really important. So that's where you will line up your addresses with what type of function you have. So if you have R values, rapid stops in your cycles, then you need the R value here. So the default ones have most of them in already. So you just need to go and use them in the cycles correctly. If you use IJ and K, I mean, that's where you're going to set that up. So R values, if you use R values for your arcs, then you need to specify that as well in here. Okay. So your cutter comp is in here as well. Tool length compensation is here as well, and then your auxiliary, your M codes is in here as well. And this post is going to do sequence numbers for us as well. Then just the general address output. So how do you want to show that? Default, no special control. Output only, output decimal only when needed. So you pick on the type of output that you want. File type. So a lot of you guys have a certain extension to your files. So maybe NC or tab file is the default. So this is where you can go and change that. So I'm going to use the default tab file. If we go to the list file format tab, so you can see that's the name that I've entered, and we use this list file for troubleshooting. So as soon as you post a CL file from Creo, you'll notice there's a few files that the post processor will create. Obviously, if there's errors or something went wrong, that's your troubleshooting file. So it's going to just explain to you a little bit better what happened, why there was errors, and things like that. Okay, so that's the list file. Sequence numbers, if you want to add those, okay, how do you want to add them? Should the start sequence be 1 and then increment by 1? So you can sort of say that. I've seen a few customers that will increment by 10. So you have 1, you have 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. Okay. The simulation file and the HTML packet, I'm not going to talk too much about that. That's also things that we don't use that much. I'll say these first three are the important ones in this file format. If we're going to go to the start and end program, so this is where you will add your start lines and things like that if you want to. You can either do it in here or you can do it in the factory language if you want to. All depends on what you have. I mean, it's so easy nowadays to do it in here. If you just go and you say, well, I want to add starting lineups, and then you can type in any information here. Start program, for instance. You can add lines in here, like let's take an example, like let's say, let's call it G17. We're going to work in inches, and then we want to cancel a few things, and we're going to cancel all our cycles, and then we're going to put it in G90 mode as well. Okay, so that's a start of your program. That's going to be at the top, so you can just put it in there if you want to. I'm just going to remove those for now. I'm going to come back to that a little bit later and show you how that's going to work. That's here again. And then if we want to output our end of program blocks, it's the same scenario. Right? So that's going to be my end lines. So I'm going to come back a little bit later and I'm going to add those in into a different post processor that's already been created. Okay, so that's the start and end. If you want to be prompt for a program number, there's the tick box for that. If you go into the program number, you can add a prefix or a postfix to that. You can skip leading blanks, things like that. I just have to add that. Okay, so if you want like an O number, that's where you will put that in. And then you can add a default number, something like that if you want to. And then you just add your prompt string as well. So something like enter program number or whatever makes sense to the guys that's creating the G-code files. Okay, something that I also just noticed that I wanted to share with you guys. Some of the older versions of the option file generator don't have this information panel on the right-hand side. So as you pick on these, it's going to give you some sort of explanation. Okay. In the previous webinars I did, you had to pick on this and then either hit F1 or the help file. So that's even not that like I've expected it. I think I have to hit F1. Let's see. No, it's not opening like it used to. Okay, so this will just give you that information. In the older versions, if you picked in a certain box and you hit F1, it will open up basically the same information you will see here, but just in the help documentation. Okay. So I'm just going to disable that for now. So no program number for this one. Okay, then we're going to the motions. So the next one, also one that's going to be part of a big part of the post-processor development is the motion and the machine codes tab. Okay, so there's a lot of things that you're going to set in there. Okay, and that's also where the default ones from PTC might not have everything. So even if you use that one as a starting point or the template, at least go through these tabs and make sure everything is there like you would need it. Okay, so for instance, we're currently going to output the repeat point. Okay, so do you want that? It's going to make your code a little bit longer. There's going to be repeat things in there. It all depends on what you want to do, how you want to do that, how the guy on the floor wants to see it. Okay, so I think for this next two tabs, the motion and the machine codes, I mean, the machine operators on the floor, the guy that's going to see the code on the controllers, their input here is pretty important. There's certain things that they want to see. There's certain things that they trust. So you need to develop it so it's easy for them. If something goes wrong, they'll pick it up quickly. So get those guys involved if you create these post processors. Okay, so I'm going to say output. I'm going to leave that as default. Then your linear. So that's your G1. So the post processor will know that's G1 for your linear motions, right? And that also ties up with the file form of the MCD. Okay, so that's where you need to tie that up. How do you want to output that? X, Y, Z in one block, output X, Y, Z, and then Z on a different block. Okay, so you can choose how you want to do that. If you go to rapid motions, also, so that's going to be G0s. Okay, and then I want to stop and just focus a little bit on this motion analysis. So how do you want that machine to retract and move to a specific point? Okay, so Creo is going to just give you sort of a point where the machine needs to go, but the machine's going to be at home, or it's going to be retracted all the way. So how it moves to that first position is quite important, and the post processor needs to generate the code in the correct way. So I think most of the customers will have X, Y when it's advancing. So it's going to move X, Y, and then drop Z. And then when it retracts, it's going to go Z and then X, Y movements, okay, away from the job. Okay, so there's a few options that you can choose from. You need to choose the one that's best suited for your machine. Okay. Do you want to rotate first and then your X, Y, and then Z? Or do you want to do X, Y, then rotary, then Z? Okay, so depending on your machine setup, you might need different motion analysis. Okay. Circular interpolation. So how do you want to put that out? So output IJK. So once again, you can output radius. So I know some of the OS machines like the radius option. Okay, so if you output radius, how do you want to calculate that? So you have all the options here. Okay. In the early 2000 versions, these things you had to do with the factory language. Okay. So the option file generator makes this a lot easier for us. Okay, and then G2s, G3s, and you can set that. Okay, then you also have the IJK modifier tab. So depending on how you want to use that, you set the modes in here and how that's going to be calculated. Plane selection is also here, 17, 18s, and 19s. Okay. And then how the helical interpolation is going to be calculated as well. So all those are tabs. So all of these, I'm not sure if this last one was part of the previous versions. I have to double check that. Okay, but this general one in the beginning, that's the important one. Once again, that's going to open up different tabs for you depending on what you choose. If we're going to go to cycles, this is your cycle tab. Okay, so you're going to set it in here as well. How do you want to output that? Right, so you can just work through this and sort of pick what's applicable to your machine. The pullback option, if that's available, multi-tax option, that. Then for if there's any UG guys, then and Siemens, then there's specific tabs for you to make some adjustments. Okay. So I know the Siemens guys and the Heidenhain guys, they are very particular in a lot of their cycles, and although the option file generator make some room for them, not everything is there. So Heidenhain and Siemens guys, you most probably will need to go into the full stuff and program those cycles or create some sort of code to get your cycles to 100%. Let's jump to the machine codes. So all your G codes and things that's going to be set in here, your prep codes, they are in here. So if you're working in inch mode and metric mode, then this is where you will set that. What code is for inches, so you can set that. Absolute mode, incremental mode, and then all your cycles. So you need to tie this up. You need to have the correct codes here. So 9 out of 10 times you will refer to the manuals of the machine tool. There's normally M code list and G code list. So make sure you use the correct ones. Same goes for the M code. So optional stop encode, rewind code in 30. If you have axis clamping, so that's normally on your 4-axis, 5-axis machine. So once again, an example of that. As soon as I ticket that unclamping, what the values are there, and then your clamping values. So you need to go and set that. Yeah. So also important tab if you use one of those default template or default post processors, either from the installation directory or from the PTC website. Make sure your codes here are correct. Cutter compensation. So this is where you're going to set that. Default 41, 42, and then off is 40, and then your address. So if you have a different address, you can add it in here. The default one, D, is on most machines. Coolant. So what type of coolant do you have? So maybe coolant is a good example of what you need to set in your Creo parameters. So you set flood in your Creo parameters? Do you set high pressure through? What's the default code? Coolant off, things like that. So that's all things that you have to know, and you have to activate these ones when you create your sequences. So the default NC stuff in Creo is not going to have coolant on at any stage. So you need to go and do that for each sequence, or you have to set your site file so the coolant is always on. Okay. So I'm gonna use the P-print when we do the demonstration, where we sort of see how G-Post and Creo work together, and then you'll see what I mean with that. Feed rates. Okay, so this is where we're gonna set that. Feature offset. Okay, how do you want to do that? H values. Okay, very straightforward. Tool change sequence tab, also important. Everybody's going to do some tool changes at some stage. Once again, Do you want the T and M code on separate lines? So you can go through this and tick the boxes that you need. Is the T code modal or not? So you can sort of tick that depending on what you want. And then also one that's been added that was sort of hidden in previous versions is the user blocks. So you can sort of set user blocks for your tool changes. So certain blocks before the tool change, is there certain codes that you want to see? Maybe you want to just move out a little bit out of the workpiece before the tool change, so you can set that in here. And then is there any tool, codes that you want to activate after the tool change? Right, so also once again an example where they made it a lot easier for the tool change sequences to be modified. In previous versions, and you will see it a lot of in a lot of the default post processors, that was done with the full language. Yeah. Okay, and there's the M code for that. You need to set as well, T code. Spindle. Okay, so just some default settings here. On a block by itself, do you want it with the X and Y or with the next Z? So that depends on where you want to start that. Okay, also important, clockwise, counterclockwise. What do you want to do with that spindle and that S code? Where do you want to see it in the code? Okay, then I'm just quickly gonna go through the full editor. Okay, so this is where you can run or you create all your full code. So I'm going to open up a post processor now where there is some samples of that. You can see this is blank because we've used the default one. So in here, you will have to go and you will need to create that code. So if you want to change the way that the tools are loaded, then you will need to go and fix that. So the full editor falls into that category where the default output is not sufficient for you. It's not what you want, and you need to go and tweak that a little bit. You want the S value in a certain line, and the default values is not giving that to you. Then you need to go and do that. So that being said, let's quickly go and open up a previous post processor. So I'm going to use the 11 one. Yeah, so I think this is a Haas machine. Let's quickly. Yeah, so this is for a Haas VF8 machine. And let's quickly just take it as normal. So you can see it's the number 11 post processor. So let's just quickly go into Creo and let's just run this and let's just look at some code. So I'm going to close this. I'm not going to save anything. And you'll see we are back in Creo. Okay. So let's take, I'm going to take the whole sequence. I'm doing this way around so we can sort of see or look at the CL code. I'm quickly going to review that, and then I'll show you where you can open that up in a text editor or Notepad. I'm using Notepad++. Okay, so this is our player. So you can see now if we play, we're actually going to see the tool move, and we'll see the tool parts and all of that funky stuff, but we want to just focus on the CL data a little bit. Okay, so just as a quick example, so you'll see that in this line 12, that the spindle output is first and then the coolant output. So you'll have the S command first, and then you'll have the M code for your coolant. But if you want it the other way around, then you'll need to do that with the full language, and then you'll need to go and create something for that. Okay, then that's going to be your rapid moves, go-to moves, and as your circle, so that's going to be G2, G3. Yep. So by looking at the CL data, and that's created by Creo, and that's default way, we can't do too much about these sequences. We can add P prints and things like that, which I'm going to show you just now. But that's about that what that we can do. We can't change if the spindle output is before the coolant. I mean, that's hard coded into Creo. Okay, so let's go output this file. I'm going to save the CL file. I want to open that as well. And I'm going to put it in our default working directory. I'm just going to rename this so I can pick it up quickly. Okay, so then Creo is going to prompt me. So which post processor do I want to use? So I have two post processors in my file or in my post folder. So you can see if I hover my mouse over 11, look at the bottom left hand, you can see that name that was there in the post processor, that Haas VF8. And then my machine 24 is a Mahu VMC, okay, with the Philips CNC. That's a 5-axis post. Okay, so I'm just going to use the normal 3-axis for this. Okay, so you can see this one is prompting me for a program number, so I'm just going to put in a program number 123. Okay, so that's generating the code for me. So I see I have two warnings here. Might be the last two. I think those are 5-axis toolpaths. Might have the wrong version get loaded, but that's okay. So let's close that and let's go into our Explorer and just look at those files. So I'm going to open up the NC file, the NCL file, and I'm going to open up the tab file. And I'm going to put them next to each other. Okay. So something that's out of the ordinary with this post, as you can see, we have a line number at the top. So there's the program number that I have and the O value. And then so I only have line numbers for the tool changes. Okay. Although I output a coolant flood, there's no M code for flood here. Okay. So that's an example of where Creo is outputting something, but you didn't make provision for that in the G post. Just want to make sure I'm not missing that. I don't see it anywhere. Okay. So that's, we don't have any starting blocks here. We just have an N number where the tool changes are, and then we're going to run into our sequences so we can see the X, Y, Z values. And not as easy to go and look through this code. So there's some IJ values. Okay, so we know there's arcs and things like that. Okay, you can see there's one G3 in here, and then a whole bunch of movements. So that G3 is most probably modal. Okay. So depending if you want to see G3s and G2s on every line, then you have to go and activate that in the post processor. Okay, so we've got some code now. So let's go and change something quickly. We have like 10 minutes left of this hour. So let's quickly go do the P print section. Okay, so for instance, one of the things that we want is we want to see the sequence name in here. So I'm going to go to my P print section in Creo. I'm going to say create, and I want to add the sequence names in here. I'm going to say yes to that. See it change to yes, and I'm going to say okay. I'm going to say done. And I'm quickly going to rerun that NCL file. So this example is also where you can add your own user-defined parameters in Creo 9. It wasn't available in previous versions. So you'll see there's the P print, and it's adding the NC sequence name now. So I'm going to take that, and I'm just going to create another CL file. I'm going to call it webinar 002. I'm going to pick the same post processor. I haven't done anything to that yet. Give it a different program number. Okay, and let's quickly go and open up that tool tab. Okay, so you can still see it's not showing in there, although it was in the NCL file. The GPost just didn't do that. Okay, so let's quickly go and fix that. So we need to go and open up the NC post. I'm going to open up the same post 11. And I'm going to tick this box. Output operator messages to tab file. Okay, I'm going to save that. So a simple thing is just a tick box. That's saved. I'm going to close that again. I'm going to go to manufacturing. I'm going to post a CL file. I'm going to take that exact same webinar 2 CL file. I'm going to pick the updated P11 post processor. It's going to ask me for a number again. Let's use 89. And I'm going to open that up. So just a nice feature on Notepad++. If you open up the same file and it noticed it was changed, it's going to ask you, do you want to reload it? Just say yes. And you can see now there's additional information in here. Yeah. So that's how you can go. So if I want to troubleshoot that now, I can just take that. I can hit find. Excuse me. I can hit find. It's going to go to the next one. So I can see how the previous one ended, and I can see how the next sequence started. Okay. So we're using the same tool here, so that's something I don't like. So I would change that. So I put out the tool again, and that's just easier if you need to rerun a certain toolpath. So I'll make the tool modal, or not modal yet, and that will give me tooling here again. It's just moving with the same tool to the next sequence. Not ideal. Let's quickly add specific starter blocks. We don't really have anything here. We move X, Y, then we jump into Z. I just want a little bit of a better starting point. So let's quickly go. I'm not going to add that. It's just going to be a 2-liner, just to show you guys how you would do that. And then we're going to go into questions and answers. So I'm going to, let's go to the, we're going to add the starter blocks. And I'm going to say start program, that in brackets. Okay. And then I'm just going to give it, let's give it that safety, the G17, G20, G40, G49, G80, and G90. So we make sure we start an absolute. We save that. Close the option, file generator. And we're going to output that same one again. maybe not 2. Let's pick my post. Give it a program number. There's that, and then let's reload that. And now you can see we have those lines right at the top. Okay. So we might need to modify that a little bit. Our own number is below that, so that needs to be at the top. Okay, so that's sort of what I wanted to show you guys. I guess the message with these last 2 demonstrations is that Creo and the post processor need to work together. It's a partnership between the 2. You need to understand what data is coming, what's created in Creo, where the post processor fits into the middle of that, and then what your output is going to be. Okay, so I just wanted to or hopefully I did get that point across. Yep, I think that's it regarding the demonstration. We have like 3 minutes, so I'm going to mute myself quickly. I see there are a few questions. If there are any other questions, quickly get them in, and then I'll answer them as soon as I can. Okay, let me mute myself and quickly go through these questions. Oh, yep. Okay, so just remember we have a YouTube channel as well. So all of these webinars are recorded, and they are they're uploaded within the next few days. Okay, let me check the question. Okay, so the one questions we have, there's a few coming in. So I have a manufacturing file that actually took 30 minutes to open in Creo and generate the G code using a specific post processor. So if you need to rerun the G code, I mean that the only way from doing that is with inside Creo. I know there are extensions for the G post that you can run that outside of Creo, but obviously that's an additional cost. So if it's a constant problem that you have to rerun code from Creo and you are working with large files, then maybe reach out to us so we can see what we can do to help you a little bit with that. I mean, open up an assembly and it's taking 30 minutes to rerun the G code. That must be pretty big stuff, or there's something wrong. So please reach out to us, send me an email. I'll get technical support or myself involved, and let's see what we can do to make your life a little bit easier there. And then another question that came in, do we develop custom post processors for customers? Yes, we do. That's part of our services that we provide. We will send customers a document that will give us some basic information, or not basic, as much information as possible on the machine that they have. We normally request sample code. So even if you have to hand edit a few lines just to show us what your end result should be, and from there we allocate that to application engineer. It will be either me or Sean that will do that. And yes, then we create those custom post processors for. Also a question, how long have I been writing post processors? I'm actually still a newbie, so I've been doing this for about 5 years now. I did get started about 7, 8 years ago, but it wasn't my main function. So I've sort of took 3, 4 years on and off doing post processors, and yeah, doing it not full time, but spending a lot of my time on it for the last 4 or 5 years. Okay, so I don't see any other questions coming in. So once again, I want to thank you guys for joining us today, and keep in mind that we have all of this on YouTube, so make sure to go and visit our YouTube channel. Thanks, guys, and have a good day. Bye.